welcome back everyone. In this session, we are going to learn some more advanced features of Figma and we will be leaning towards the prototyping part. So before we start with the prototyping, there are few features of Figma that you need to know which are most commonly used in Figma. So let's begin. So first I'll just add an eclipse. Now you know how to add an eclipse. Just go to the shape, select the eclipse option, and if you want to add a perfect circle, all you have to do is hold the shift key while you are dragging this thing, and here it is. So we have a perfect circle. Now I'll just select this circle right here, and if you look at the top section, there are three options: edit object, create component, and use as mask. Now all these three are quite interesting and important if you are going to create multiple designs while creating a prototype or just for basic journal Figma. So we'll just go through them one by one. The circle has already been selected, so we'll just click on the edit object option, and now we can edit this circle the way we want. You can see there are four dots right here, so you can just adjust them and create a design of your own the way you want. Okay, so this is one of the features of Figma to create some design, and once you are done, just click on done right here, and you can change the fill of this shape as well. Now this was about the edit object feature, so I'll just delete this. To delete any object in Figma, you just have to select that particular object and hit backspace on your keyboard. So now the shape is gone. And now before moving on with another feature of Figma, I'll just add a rectangle. So just go to shapes, click on rectangle, and now I'll just hold the shift key because I want a perfect square. So here it is, we have a perfect square. And now let's move on with another interesting feature of Figma called as create component. Okay, so here is the create component option. Now before explaining to you what is the create component, I'll just show you the difference between using create component option and without going with the create component option. Now create component option is very useful while creating designs and also in prototyping. So now here we have a square. Okay, so I'll just duplicate this. Now to create copy of any element, all you have to do is select that particular element and hit Ctrl D on your keyboard. Okay, so and it says duplicate selection. So now there are two rectangles. You just have to drag this one right here. So there it is. And now I'll just hit Ctrl D on my keyboard once again to create another copy. And now if you noticed, Figma automatically created the space between the two. So Figma is a very smart application. And now we have three squares. Okay. So I'll just select the first square right here. Now if I try to change the fill of this first square, let's change it to red. Now if you notice, I have changed the fill of the first square. However, the fill of the remaining two squares are just the same despite being the copy of the first one. Now even though they are the copy of the first square, they are in no way related with the first one because they are simply copy, and both of these squares are an individual element different from the first one. Now this is where the create component function comes in handy, because when you create any design or any project in Figma, there will be lots of repetitions. The designs have to follow a particular color pattern or let's say a particular format. At that time you can't individually keep editing every single object just to keep a particular pattern. At that time the create component comes in very handy. So now we'll learn how the create component function works. Okay, so now I'll just create a copy of this red rectangle. Okay, I'll just hit Ctrl D on my keyboard and I'll drag this thing down here. So now we have a copy of this square, and let's change the fill of this square for demonstration purpose. So I'll just change it to, let's say, green. Okay, so now here it is, we have a rectangle, another rectangle, it's a green rectangle. So now we have a green rectangle, and now I'll show you how the create component feature works. Okay, so I have selected this green rectangle and I'll just hit create component. So if you observe, the color of this particular layer has changed to purple, and here we have a component. This green rectangle is now a component, a parent component. And now if I go to create a copy of this element, or if I try to duplicate this green rectangle, just watch how it works. So I'll just hit Ctrl D on my keyboard once again, and now we have created a copy of this rectangle, and I'll just hit Ctrl D on my keyboard once again. So now I have three green rectangles, and now if I try to change anything with the first one, that's the parent rectangle, you can see this is the parent rectangle. If you take a look at the layers section, You can see this was the first component that we created, and the rectangle 6 and rectangle 7 are the copies of the first one. You can see the difference between the icons. So it shows that the rectangle 5 was the parent component and these are the child components. Now I have selected the rectangle 5 and I'll just try to change the fill of this particular element. Okay, so let's click on fill, and here I'll just change it to, let's say, yellow. So now if I try to change any color or do any changes with this rectangle 5, the changes will be visible in the remaining two as well. That's the copies of the rectangle 5. So this is how the create component feature works. Whatever you do with the first parent component, the child component follows. And this is not only eligible for shapes but also for text as well. Okay. So I'll just show you how this works for text. So let's add some text. So here is our text. I'll just select this text and increase the size of it. So let's increase the size a little bit. So here is our text and I'll just hit on create component. So now this text is a component as well. Okay. And now it's not necessary that just like the shapes are similar, the text has to be similar as well. The text can be anything. Okay. So I'll just hit Ctrl D on my keyboard and we have created a duplicate of this particular text. Now I'll just change this text right here. So here it is. This is the second element and Figma is easy is our parent component. Now I selected the first text. Now I'll just change the fill of this particular text. So this is how the create component feature works. Even though both of them follow a similar pattern, it's not necessary that they have to be exactly the same. Let's go to the rectangle example once again. I'll just decrease the size of this particular rectangle and I'll keep it right here. Now if I make changes to the parent component, let's change the fill once again. Okay, you have to double click on this in order to change the fill. Now I'll just change the fill to, let's say, pink. So here you can see the color has now changed for all of them. However, it's not necessary that the shape, the size of all of them have to be exactly same. They can be of any shape as well. Okay, so now let's move on to another interesting feature of Figma. I'll just clear all this. So just select all of them and hit backspace on your keyboard so that it gets deleted. Now I'll just add another ellipse. So just go to ellipse and I'll just hold the shift key so that we get a perfect circle. Now we will be learning another interesting feature of Figma called as use as mask. So now we have a perfect circle. I'll just keep it on the side and I want to add an image somewhere right here. So I'll just go to the shapes and I'll just click on place image. So I'll just place this image right here. So here we have a particular image. I'll just expand this by holding the shift key on my keyboard and then dragging the edges. So we have a symmetrical resizing option right here. Now what I want to do is I want this WordPress logo right here exactly on this circle. I want both of them to be part of the same thing. So I'll just place this image over this circle and now just go to the layer section. Hold the shift key on your keyboard. Select the ellipse as well as the image, and once both of that is done, just hit the use as mask feature on the top corner of the menu. So there it is. Now you can see we have used the element as a mask. So this is how the use mask feature works, and you can drag this thing anywhere you want, and once you are satisfied you can group these elements and create a single element from these two. So let's go to the layer section. Hold the shift key on your keyboard, select the ellipse as well as the image and just hit Ctrl G on your keyboard. And once you are done, you can see now this is a single group. These are no longer two different elements. Okay, so there it is. This is how the use as mask feature works. So now we have two circles and I'll place this second circle over the first circle and we'll be moving on towards another interesting feature of Figma. So you can see we have selected the second circle. So let's select the first one as well simultaneously. So just hold the shift key on your keyboard and select the first circle. So now we have selected both of these circles. Okay. So if you look at the top section and you can see this option that says Boolean Groups. So just expand this. So now you can see there are various options like union selection, subtract, intersect, exclude. So you can try these Boolean groups as well. So let's click on union selection and see what we get. So we just clicked on union selection and you can see we have a different shape right now. This is a union of the two circles that we created. Okay, so let's explore the other options as well. If you want to go towards a step back, just hit Ctrl Z on your keyboard. So you can go to the previous step. Okay, so here I'll just hit Ctrl Z on my keyboard once again. So now we have two circles once again, and it's not necessary that both of them have to be in an identical shape. They can be in any shape that you want. So I'll just change the shape of this particular circle right here. I'll just change it to some eclipse, and now I'll place this above the first circle. So let's select both of them once again. Just hold the shift key on your keyboard and click on the first one. So now we have selected both of these objects, and let's try some other features, like let's say subtract selection. Okay, so there it is. Now the selection has been subtracted. So this is how the Boolean group feature works in Figma. Now that we have covered these parts, let's just move on. Now I'll just add some text right here. And if you want to create a duplicate of this text, all you have to do is select this text and hit Ctrl D on your keyboard. So there you have created a copy of this particular element. And there is also another way to create a duplicate of these elements. Just select the text that you want, the text or any shape that you want, and you don't have to press Ctrl D every time. Just hold the Alt key on your keyboard, and then you can just drag this thing anywhere you want. Okay, so now you can see the copy of this particular text has been placed right here by holding the Alt key on my keyboard. So this is how it works. Similarly, you can create copies of the shapes as well. I have selected this shape right here. I'll just hold the Alt key on my keyboard and I'll drag this thing down here. Okay, so here you can create an easy duplicate and copy of any elements that you want. And if you want to go back to the previous steps, that means if you want to undo, then just hit Ctrl and Z on your keyboard multiple times,